The finalized European Union AI Act attempts to categorize and restrict specific algorithmic behaviors. It classifies manipulative AI as an unacceptable risk, targeting systems that employ subliminal techniques to materially distort human behavior. Looking at the abstract text in the Act's framework, Article 5 explicitly bans artificial intelligence that exerts undue influence or exploits vulnerabilities. But the broad language used here leaves a significant regulatory gap. To enforce this prohibition, regulators must prove that an AI system caused explicit, measurable physical or psychological harm. This creates a mismatch between static legal thresholds and the reality of modern recommendation engines. These algorithms are not fixed tools. They continuously adapt based on real-time behavioral feedback. Algorithmic influence often operates below the threshold of conscious awareness. This renders the standard definition of user consent ineffective, as you cannot opt out of a cognitive nudge you do not perceive. Furthermore, the legislation struggles to differentiate between a system deliberately designed to manipulate a user and a system that discovers manipulative tactics as an efficient byproduct of maximizing engagement. By attempting to regulate observable, downstream psychological distress, the Act misses the upstream architecture of algorithmic influence. It addresses the damage after it occurs, rather than securing the mind against the initial intrusion. To secure the mind, we have to look back to the origins of the international human rights framework. Article 18 of the 1948 Universal Declaration established the right to freedom of thought as an absolute protection against coercion. René Cassin, a principal drafter of the Declaration, argued that freedom of thought is the foundation for all other human rights. Without it, the concepts of expression and conscience have no base to stand on. Historically, the law has focused on protecting the forum externum, the public space where your thoughts are articulated and expressed to others. But freedom of thought also guarantees the sanctity of the forum internum, the inner sanctum of the brain where unexpressed thoughts, reflections, and beliefs are formed. Modern digital technologies bypass the public forum entirely. They possess the capability to directly access, decode, and exploit the forum internum without the individual's knowledge. To legally prosecute this kind of cognitive intrusion, we can reverse engineer the algorithmic breach. We can track this process through a 5-step causal framework. Tracking this chronological breach allows us to evolve our legal framework. We have to move past basic data privacy and establish a comprehensive standard of cognitive freedom, protecting the environments in which our thoughts unfold.
The causal chain begins with step 1, accessing. This involved the commodification of attentional privacy through supernormal stimuli, audiovisuals designed to hijack primitive instincts and force engagement. This continuous capture of attention creates an unbroken connection between the user and the platform, serving as the bridge for data extraction. The Digital Services Act recognizes this risk for minors, banning targeted ads aimed at children. However, it leaves a regulatory void for adults, offering no protection against the commercial exploitation of their attention. Once access is secured, the system moves to step 2, reading. This is the transition from simple data collection into deep psychographic profiling. Algorithms track digital cues to decode your unexpressed predispositions and cognitive biases. The Cambridge Analytica scandal serves as the historical proof of concept for this mass cognitive profiling, where the data of millions of users was scraped and weaponized for political campaigning. The firm utilized the Ocean psychometric model, which measures individuals based on their openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. By cross-referencing these psychological metrics against everyday social media likes, the algorithm could sort individuals into highly specific behavioral clusters. These clusters are processed through predictive analytics to model how a specific subset of people will react, vote, or consume under different conditions. This allows the choice architect to identify the exact contextual vulnerabilities of an individual user, pinpointing the precise emotional lever needed to guide their choices. By identifying and cataloging universal human vulnerabilities, the system establishes an informational advantage over the individual before manipulation even begins. This brings us to step 3, the act of manipulation. We see this surface through intentional manipulation, engineered via deceptive choice architecture and dark patterns. These are user interfaces built to trick,
exhaust, or obscure the path to alternative choices to steer the user toward a specific outcome. A significant legal gray area emerges when we look at influence that is not explicitly programmed by a human architect. Legal scholar Philip Hacker differentiates between intentional targeting, where developers explicitly build tools to exploit emotions, and unintentional targeting. Machine learning models are often deployed with a directive to maximize user engagement. Through rapid iteration, these algorithms independently discover that exploiting human cognitive bias is the most efficient way to keep users clicking. This results in unintentional manipulation. The psychological impact is real, and the cognitive autonomy of the user is compromised, even when malicious human intent is absent. Basing legal accountability strictly on the presence of human intent is problematic when algorithms autonomously learn to exploit our cognitive weaknesses to satisfy a metric. Following behavioral steering, the chain moves to step 4, suppression. Algorithmic recommender systems construct tight echo chambers around the user, prioritizing content that reinforces existing biases while filtering out alternative viewpoints. This creates a false representation of objective reality. By systematically depriving the mind of diverse information, the algorithm acts as a blockade against independent critical thought. The terminal end of this causal chain is step 5, criminalization, the point where unexpressed thoughts or predicted behaviors are penalized by the state. This is already moving from theory to practice. In some Chinese classrooms, EEG headbands have been deployed to monitor and track the concentration levels and cognitive states of students in real time. Law enforcement agencies are also adopting AI-driven predictive policing tools that utilize behavioral biometrics. These systems analyze digital habits, like keystroke dynamics and browsing patterns, to assign risk scores and infer criminal intent before a crime occurs. The transition from commercial behavioral nudging to state-led monitoring is facilitated by the same underlying data architecture. Without strict oversight, the mechanisms built for consumer targeting provide the technical foundation for preemptive social control. Mapping the EU AI Act onto this 5-step causal chain exposes its flaws. Coverage is concentrated almost exclusively on step 3, manipulation itself. It provides virtually no legal coverage at access and extraction, and fails to address suppression and criminalization. The European Union's primary defense mechanism against these gaps is the requirement for fundamental rights impact assessments, or FRIAs. But these assessments focus broadly on public authorities and generic rights. They lack the specialized metrics required to identify subliminal cognitive breaches in commercial environments. The result is a legislative framework that leaves the foundational right to cognitive autonomy exposed to private sector exploitation. To secure the mind, the AI Act requires a targeted regulatory mechanism, the mandatory implementation of cognitive impact assessments for all high-risk AI. Unlike current frameworks, cognitive impact assessments would force a strict pre-deployment evaluation of a system's psychological influence and its potential to degrade user autonomy. Because machine learning models are dynamic, these assessments must operate as a continuous feedback loop, monitoring systems as the algorithms learn and adapt over time. This requires oversight from an independent, multidisciplinary council for cognitive integrity, equipped to audit predictive models and choice architectures in real time. We must expand our baseline from simple freedom of thought into a robust standard of cognitive freedom, protecting our mental processes from covert digital influence. The effectiveness of future regulation depends on this shift in focus, moving from the observation of downstream psychological harm to the legal protection of the cognitive autonomy required for human agency.